She whispered me stories like people lighting candles in a dark room. Careful, deliberate, choosing what shadows to maintain. I took every word of it in because I needed to. For love, when it feels safe, makes you believe the voice to which you surrender as you drift into sleep. We met in a small, mundane way. An empty chair at a cafe when the power went out. Two strangers laughing over melted ice and hot coffee. Her name was Mira. She had eyes for things. Cracks in the wall that looked like maps, the shift in people's voices when they lied to themselves. She loved stories, she said, not just reading them but living inside them. I mentioned that I was tired of fiction and craved something real. She smiled and replied, "Real is just a story that we all agree it would be too traumatic to question." I didn't question her. Not then. Our relationship grew quietly. No fireworks, no dramatic declarations. Only nights that bled into each other like dog-eared pages. She unfolded her past for me in bits and pieces. A mother who worked too much, a father who left early, the smell of dust and mangoes in summer. She described previous relationships to me in a practiced style of detaching, reading from the back cover rather than opening up the book. I thought that was maturity. She said she hated secrets. Honesty was my religion, she said. I learned her routines. How she stirred her tea twice clockwise, once counter. The fact that she used to sleep with her hand curled, as if gripping something in the darkness. She was into long walks and short conversations on Sundays. On weekdays, she liked silence. I loved her in those silent spots, between things she was saying. I assumed those pauses were the sign of trust. When she talked about her day, it was always a whole story. There was a start, work was tiring. A medium, someone or something annoyed her, made her laugh. An end, she came home to me. It felt complete, balanced, like a chapter neatly closed. I never inquired what went on between the lines. He came into our lives like footnotes do, small, almost imperceptible. A name dropped first once, then twice. A colleague, she said. Nothing interesting. His name was Jonah. I remember it because she mentioned it offhandedly, as if the idea didn't merit room in the sentence. I first knew him in passing. A meeting ran late. A project needed extra hours. Her phone vibrated face down with a message. She never hid it. That's what told me they had nothing to hide. She regaled me with tales of work stress, office politics, how it wore her out. He is too talkative, she said Jonah, and he is cocky, she said Jonah, and he does not listen. She said his name with an eye roll. I thought that her very annoyance was a sign of separation. Looking back, I see how easy it is to misread discomfort when it's so carefully staged. The first crack came quietly. One sentence that didn't work for us. She once recounted a scene from one night at work, how the team stayed behind, ordered food, and complained together. She said he had made a joke, she added. Later that week, she repeated the same story but had a different joke. The ending had changed. It was small, insignificant. Misremembering is a constant for the human animal. I told myself that. But once you see one crack, you begin spotting others. Her stories got richer, more detailed, yet also increasingly unfinished. She described emotions without identifying their cause. She recounted intimate moments that could seem to be intimate, but framed them as testimonials. When we talked for hours, as she put it once, about life. She didn't say who, but I knew who. You and Jonah? I whispered softly. She laughed. Too quickly. God, no. We somehow ended up there. Happened is a strange word. It suggests accident. Fate. Not choice. I did not want to be the suspicious partner. I knew the test questions and had promised myself I would let love never be an interrogation. So I repressed my doubt and accepted the version of reality she served up. Meanwhile, her phone became a third figure in our relationship. Always there, rarely talking when I was in the room. She'd hide in another part of the apartment to take calls. She said it was work. I said to myself ambition is what distance looks like in the gap. She shared stories of fatigue, of being unnoticed at work, of carrying too much responsibility. I listened. I supported. I became where she fell after the day had taken everything from her. What she didn't say to me was that while I held the frame of her life, someone else had filled in the pages. I stumbled on it, the way most truths come to light, without a fuss, as it were. A public computer, a browser tab left open. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't looking for proof. I just happened to be there when the curtain fell. It was a document. Untitled. Lines of words that sound like a diary, or maybe a novel. My initial impression was that it must be fiction. She liked to write. She said writing helped her think. Then I saw his name. It wasn't explicit. No graphic confessions. Just moments. Conversations. Glances held too long. And inside jokes that you didn't have to explain. Some feelings at this tested would be shared with care, with awe. These weren't summaries. These were chapters. She had written about meeting him early, about feeling understood in ways she hadn't expected, about the thrill of being seen without asking, about how guilt sat beside excitement like an unwanted guest she refused to acknowledge. What hurt most wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the intimacy of her honesty. With him, with herself, but never with me. She had been telling me edited stories while giving him the uncut version of her heart. I read until my hands shook. Not because of anger, but because of recognition. Scenes I thought belonged to us, moments I believed were shared, had been mirrored elsewhere with deeper meaning. The laughter she brought home had been born somewhere else. When she came home that night, I didn't confront her immediately. I watched her move through the apartment, comfortable, familiar. She asked about my day. I answered. She kissed my cheek. I felt the weight of everything she hadn't said. That night, she told me a story about work, about Jonah being frustrating, about wanting a break from people. I listened like someone hearing a language they once knew but no longer understood. I asked, "Is there anything you haven't told me?"
She paused.
Just for a second. Then she smiled.
No.
That was the moment something in me closed. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a quiet decision to stop protecting a truth that wasn't protecting me. The confrontation, when it came, was calm. I told her what I'd seen. I told her how it made me feel, not angry, just erased. She cried. She apologized. She said it wasn't supposed to happen like this. She said she never meant to hurt me. She said she told me stories because she didn't want to lose me. I asked her why he got the chapters one never knew about. She didn't have an answer. Or maybe she had too many. She said with him, she felt like she could be unfinished. With me, she felt she had to be whole. She said she didn't know how to bring her doubts into our relationship without breaking it. She said the stories she told me were the best versions of herself. I told her I didn't want the best version. I wanted the honest one. Silence filled the space where excuses usually live. In the end, there was no shouting, no slammed doors. Just the slow, painful work of acknowledging that love built on partial truth eventually collapses under its own weight. She moved out a week later. We divided our lives the way people divide books. Some returned, some kept, some left unfinished. She took her notebooks. I kept the quiet. Healing didn't come as a breakthrough. It came as a series of small, stubborn acts. Learning not to reread old messages. Learning that clarity hurts less than confusion. Learning that being loved shouldn't feel like decoding a puzzle. Sometimes I still think about her stories. About how convincing they were. About how easily I accepted them. I don't blame myself anymore. Trust isn't a flaw. It's a risk we take, because the alternative is loneliness. I've learned now to listen not just to what people say, but to what they leave out. To notice when a story feels too smooth, too complete. Life is messy. Love even more so. If someone only gives you the polished version, ask yourself who's getting the rough drafts. I don't know how her story with him ended. Maybe it became real. Maybe it stayed hidden. That chapter is no longer mine to read. All I know is this. I stopped loving the version of her she performed and started respecting the part of myself that deserved the truth. She told me stories. He got the chapters. Now I'm writing my own.